The Clippers hired Ty Lue today. Ty Lue, Mexico, Missouri, University of Nebraska, played over a decade in the NBA. Longtime assistant in the NBA, specifically to Doc Rivers, has been an NBA head coach. And look, I get it. There's a little bit of it. It makes total sense. The Lakers wanted to hire him last year, didn't. The Cavs, as their interim head coach, won a championship with him. And the Clippers weren't that far removed from winning a championship. And I do believe that the Clippers were adversely affected by being in the bubble, right? That it affected them maybe more so than the Lakers. They're not a rudderless ship, but their best player is kind of a mute. Right? Like Kawhi Leonard is not really a vocal leader. Paul George wants to be a vocal leader, and yet everybody rolls their eyes. There goes Paul. And they don't really have, like, their third best players are all kind of bench guys, junkyard dogs, all kind of tough guy. They don't have a true point guard, and they don't have good enough big guys. So a slightly flawed team, and they were all flawed this year, without experience playing together, and all of their attitudes collectively slipped in the bubble, and they didn't have the right leadership. They change head coach for assistant head coach, but the assistant head coach has won before. Here's the levels it makes sense, right? In order to win in the NBA, to win a championship, you have to have respect of the locker room. In order to have the respect of a locker room, you know it's really good if you've won in the NBA. So Ty Lue has that. Not only as a coach, but at least partially as a player, right? And those backup point guards, that you got to be tougher than a $2 steak to be a backup point guard in the NBA. I played against him in college. He's a really good player. Really good. Tough dude, good player, mid-range, pull-up, jump shooter. You know, I know he's most known for getting stepped over by Allen Iverson, but they won the championship 4-1. It's a great win. Allen Iverson's a great player, but if that's what you're known for when you lost the championship, I'd prefer to win the championship. Regardless of which, I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing a couple of things. One, how people have misconstrued or misunderstood the different hires in the NBA. And the thing that we always, had they hired a white coach, it would have been, well, there's another white coach hired, whatever. Ty Lue wasn't hired because he's black. Ty Lue was hired because he's a former player who won as a coach, as a champion. Right? And one of the things that many coaches, assistant coaches, black or white or otherwise, they kind of quietly burn about is, really, do we need another retread? Right? This guy's had his chance. He turned out a chance at the Lakers. Do we want another retread? And with a rebuilding team, I would say, no, we don't want another retread. Right? That didn't work for Frank Vogel, for example, as a retread. But put him on a championship team when you've coached at the highest or close to the highest level, and you need those respect hours. You need those work hours. You need to have been in the white-hot spotlight. And if you think, well, this won't work, it might not, but it did work with the Lakers, right? Their first year of having LeBron James, they had a different head coach in Luke Walton. They bring in a retread in a Frank Vogel, and it works. The difference here is Ty Lue was, if that was the Titanic, he was second in command of the Titanic, and now he's like, you know what? I can lead this ship. You just grounded the Titanic. So are there questions? Sure. I don't know how much of a difference there is. I don't know if they just tired of hearing Doc, or if Doc was a bad fit, or if Ty Lue stabbed him in the back. I do know that I had heard that the Clippers brass wasn't totally convinced on Ty Lue, but he smartly went out and got leverage by probably getting an offer from Houston, probably getting an offer from the Pelicans. It's go time. What's it going to be? But I do think it's interesting that here he was second in command of the Titanic, and now he's getting command of that exact same ship. Why? Because he has experience. And he has positive experience. In fairness to him, like, he has positive experience. I get no issue with Ty as a player, or as a coach. I do think it's interesting. Are they going to change nothing but the head coach? It also points to everybody wants to fire the coach, but unless you have an absolute set, you know who it's going to be, For a championship team, it's a little bit harder than you think. There are fewer and fewer guys who can walk in and command this respect of a locker room. It's all about fit, and we said this yesterday. And if his personality is better with Kawhi, if his personality is better with Paul George, and oh yeah, by the way, he can do the two things that Doc Rivers cannot. Doc was a very good player, but none of those guys in the locker room remember him as a player, whereas Ty at least has the street cred of having played. And more than anything, he can tell them, this is what we did with LeBron. This is what we did to win a championship with the Celtics. He's been a part of both of those things. So kind of interesting that the owner, Steve Ballmer, wanted massive change, wanted heads to roll, and really all they did was knock off the head coach and promote the assistant and probably not make many other moves. But the nature of the NBA, black, white, mixed race, doesn't matter. The hardest thing to gain is positive experience. If you have that positive experience in your resume, you vault yourself ahead of just about anybody else, regardless of color. So Daryl Morey resigned today. I have a feeling at some point we'll learn more about Daryl Morey's resignation, whether or not he wanted one head coach and the owner wanted a different head coach. The owner is somebody who did not hire him. Tillman Fertitta came in and bought the team a couple years ago, has demanded immediate success, and they've gotten worse every year. I don't agree with every or even most of the philosophies of Daryl Morey in terms of some of his player acquisitions. I don't. So much of what he does is based upon analytics. I thought it was a bad look to pay for a research paper on a Game 7 loss 2 years ago when they missed, 26, 27 straight threes. And basically the research was we got screwed on some calls and that's why we lost. We're not anti-analytics, but they're a portion of the breakdown of how you prepare and how you analyze. Some people are all analytics and some people are all like, well, I'm just going to go by my gut. Right? Computer stuff. Isn't that Dave Gettleman? We got some computer people. They do computer stuff, printers and faxes and stuff like that. Yeah, we don't do faxes anymore. Just he's on a roll. Anyway. But what I will tell you is this idea that his tenure wasn't a stunning success is laughable. Laughable. Did he pull off the trade to get them James Harden? Have they been a playoff team essentially ever since? What are the goals when you're playing? Yes, you want to win a championship, but you want to be consistently competitive. Unless you're trying to be bad, which some teams do, gut it, start over, try and be bad. You want to try and be competitive on a consistent basis, right? Don't you? The Rockets had a 61.5% winning percentage since Morey became the general manager in 2007, 2008. That's the second highest winning percentage over that span, trailing only the Spurs. Now, I would agree. Some of my friends said, well, look, he's not Billy Beane because Billy Beane's owner won't spend money. He's had two owners and Fertitta spends a bunch of money. That's why he wants to win. But look, last time I checked, there's 30 NBA teams and only one champion, right? They're in a good market, one that guys like and has tax benefits, but it's not like anybody wakes up and goes, you know where I want to live? I want to live in Houston, Texas. Don't get me wrong, you can get a huge spread of land, okay? And it's not terribly cold in the winter. And there's some beautiful Sugar Land, some beautiful suburbs to live in. The arena's great. It's right downtown. Everything's cool. This is not a shot at Houston. And I think it's the fourth largest market in the United States, but it is not a destination market. It's not like people wake up going like, I had this dream about Houston. Yeah. Oh, what? Oh, yeah. Got to get back to work. Right? People dream of New York, of L.A., and maybe a little bit Chicago's pretty good. And Miami's like, it's your South Beach, you're living on the beach. That's not really Miami, but still, that's the vision. That's where guys stay when they're there. That's what they think of. Right? Like Houston is cool. It's fine. I have friends that live there. It's a cool place to live, cool place to be. But it's not a destination market. It's not. It's kind of caught in the middle. It's big enough to be considered one, have enough money, It's not really. Guys don't throw a fit when they go there because it's a cool place to live, but it's not one that guys are like, okay, LA or Houston. That's a tough call. Nobody does that. But the bases of it are like, look, the Rockets are good, really good. They couldn't beat the Warriors, and they couldn't beat LeBron. And it wasn't for lack of trying, and I think some of it is the owner screwing it up. When they were really, really close, had a bad game, they change ownerships and like, yeah, let's go make another move. The Chris Paul thing, Chris Paul was a better fit on the court for James Harden and could cover for some of James Harden. He and James Harden couldn't get along that well. Russell Westbrook, they get along with, but he's just not as good, and he doesn't help you win. And they became a small ball team. They tried everything, just not the Warriors. Just not the Lakers, just not the Clippers. And I frankly put this on Harden. It's a gift and a curse. He makes the move. He gets James Harden. James Harden's better than anyone could have possibly ever thought that he'd be as a basketball player. But when your best player, not in great shape, doesn't play great defense, not really bought into the defensive end of the floor, you are who your best player is. So James Harden, the owner, got Daryl Morey fired or run out of town or whatever. And I don't think it's a fixable problem. But even with all of their problems, they're still a reputable playoff team year after year. And they're a good night's entertainment. And if you can't be a champion, at least be competitive and entertaining, and they've been both. So that's why I think he's a success.